Welcome to the first presentation of our Getting Ready for Grad School series. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Margaret Zuhlke, and I'm the Career Advisor and Alumni Relations Specialist for the Hui Jolu Data Science Institute at UC San Diego. Today, I will focus on the basics of applying to graduate school. Next week, we will be joined by a panel of HDSI faculty and HDSI alumni to discuss their experience, their decision-making process, and the career pathways available through the different types of degrees each panelist has either achieved or is currently pursuing. As of right now, those degrees include a PhD in computer science, a PhD in human genetics, a Master of Science in Industrial Engineering and Operations Research, and a Master of Science in Business Analytics. The last part of the series will include information sessions from UC graduate programs that offer different career paths within data science. As of right now, we will be joined by program representatives from UC San Diego's Master of Science in Business Analytics program offered through the Rady School of Management. We hope to have up to 4 graduate programs attend that last workshop, so keep an eye out for updates as we receive additional confirmations as we get closer to the event. Our agenda for today's presentation will focus on the following: the recommended timeline for applying to grad school, what to focus on as you research potential programs, a review of the application materials along with tips for successfully conquering each part of the application, recommended resources for both preparing for grad school and for researching potential programs, and finally, we'll open it up for Q&A to address your questions and concerns. You can feel free to post your questions through the chat during the presentation, or you can make a note of them to see if the answer is provided before posting it in the chat at the end. Either way, I'll be waiting until the end of the presentation to address all your questions and concerns that I receive through the chat so that we can make the most of our time together today. Many students ask me, when is the right time to apply to grad school? How do you know it's the right time? Should you go right after undergrad? Should you go after working for a few years, or even later than that? So let's first start by discussing what to consider when considering going to graduate school. Number 1, expectations in your field. For some fields, it's very normal for students to apply to graduate school as seniors in college and go straight to a master's or PhD. For others, work experience of some kind is expected. Given that there are many career pathways within the field of data science, first figure out if your field of interest expects any kind of postgraduate professional experience. Once you have the right level and kind of work experience, it's appropriate to start thinking about applying to graduate programs. The second thing to consider is, are you able to submit a strong application to your programs of interest right now? Application expectations vary by program, but some general ingredients for a strong application include a strong undergraduate GPA, compelling recommendations, good test scores, and a great statement of purpose. Some programs may also expect other things, including academic publications, research, or teaching experience. If you have all the elements that your programs of interest expect, you're well positioned to apply to graduate school. However, if you know there are holes in your application, it may be better to wait and work on improving your profile before applying again. Number 3 is preparedness. Graduate school involves a major life change. This is especially true if you return to school after working full-time, as shifting back into student mode is a major shift. You may have to move, you'll have a completely different schedule, and it will probably cause a dramatic adjustment to your finances. It will also have a big impact on your significant relationships, especially if you have a partner or children at the time when you decide to go back to school. Therefore, it's important to ask yourself, are you and those close to you ready for a big life shift? Change can be really exciting, but it's important to be ready for it. Number 4, location. If you're open to relocating for graduate school, think about where you may want to live and what kind of resources different areas can provide you on your academic and professional path. Another relevant question to ask is, which schools in your field are most highly regarded? If a program's reputation for job placement following graduation and alumni involvement and contribution are factors that are important to you, see if you can find statistics on the school's website that address your questions about the program's reputation. If you can't find this information online, a phone call to the program's admissions office can point you in the right direction. Number 6, program and curriculum features. Looking into the curriculum is critical for those of you who are in our undergraduate major. If you're looking into a Master of Data Science program, be sure to review the curriculum to ensure you will learn beyond your undergraduate education. Additionally, you should consider the school's requirements as well. For example, if there are prerequisites for the program that you haven't completed yet. And lastly, a program feature to consider is the type of mentorship that will be available to you. If you like something you've read, find out where the author is and what kind of research is being done in that department. And more importantly, if that's research that you want to be doing. You should also consider other career and job placement services that the graduate program provides, as well as to find out if prospective employers recruit from the programs you're considering. Major industries and organizations will often visit campuses to interview candidates. It's important to see if your ideal employers are connecting with the schools you want to attend. If the programs you're thinking about are in academia, find out if recent graduates have accepted academic positions, how long their searches took, and where they're working now. Additionally, you can see what types of schools they're working for and if they're getting tenure positions or one-year contracts. And lastly, number 8, school culture. School cultures vary dramatically from one to the next, and cultures between grad programs in a specific school can vary as well. Find out not just what the school is like overall, but more importantly, the program. What's expected of the class? Will you be able to keep up with the workload? What class size is standard, and what is the level of involvement with faculty? Find out if the program fosters a collaborative environment or expects more individual work, and then consider which learning style works best for you. In my opinion, the biggest difference between pursuing an undergraduate degree versus a graduate degree is that your decision-making process should revolve around the specific program you are applying to rather than the university itself. In summary, as you consider pursuing graduate school in general, I strongly recommend considering what you're looking to gain from the experience and use that to identify which of these factors are going to be most important to your decision-making process as you begin moving forward with your planning, preparation, and applications. As mentioned, it's important to consider the strength of your application before applying. If you feel you need to strengthen your application, consider these following options. Number 1, volunteer. So if your desired program requires teaching experience and you're unable to secure a position as a department or university tutor, there are tons of community programs that use volunteer teachers or teaching assistants, including ESL programs and high school mentoring. I recommend seeing what's available in your local area and connecting with the Center of Student Involvement to see what additional opportunities are provided through UC San Diego. Number 2, become a research assistant. One of the benefits of attending a school like UC San Diego is the amount of research being done, which in turn offers opportunities to become a research assistant. Later in the presentation, we'll discuss specific research opportunities available through UC San Diego that you may be interested in. Number 3, cultivate mentors. So it's important to work on cultivating mentors who can write strong references for you, whether this entails strengthening relationships with supervisors at internships, joining professional organizations, or using professors' office hours for more than just homework questions and test prep. Having a genuine conversation with people who can write you strong recommendations is a great way to improve your application. And lastly, taking classes. So it's important to demonstrate a readiness in the area in which you plan to focus your graduate education. This is a great way to utilize your electives and potentially your college requirements. Make sure you connect with your academic advisors and your college advisors for support with understanding how to make the most of your requirements. If you have to complete the units anyways, you might as well make them work to your advantage and use them to prepare you for your next step after graduation. Okay, so now that you've decided to pursue a graduate education and you feel you have a strong application, it's time to start planning. For those of you who are interested in entering graduate school immediately after completing your undergraduate education, most prospective graduate students begin searching for schools sometime during their junior year of their undergraduate program. With the help of online application forms and email communication, applying for graduate schools is not quite as difficult and time-consuming as it used to be. Still, you should plan on giving yourself at least one academic year to study for standardized tests, research, and decide on which schools to apply to and gather the necessary application documents. For those of you who will be returning to school once working for a few years, you can still follow this recommended timeline to help you allocate the appropriate amount of time to ensure you're prepared for the process. While most deadlines are in December or January, you should start thinking about your application much earlier than that. Here's my recommended timeline. If you're a graduating senior and you have not been following this timeline, it's okay. Use this as a milestone marker and work to get caught up on your preparation as soon as possible. For our younger students attending today, do your best to use this timeline to make sure you are able to pace yourself with the process as you begin moving forward. Now we'll discuss how to approach the decision-making process of which programs to apply to. As you begin your research, I recommend creating a graduate school list as either an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheet to stay organized. Your graduate school list should include at least 9 programs separated into reach schools, target schools, and safety schools. With the rise of the ultra-competitive university, reach has a new definition. It's no longer about applying to name brand schools, but instead the schools at which your transcript and test scores fall either below or at the low end of the 25th to 75th percentile range for accepted students. And any university or specific department within the university that has an overall acceptance rate of 10 to 25% is by definition a reach for everyone. I recommend applying to only 2 to 3 reach schools. Target schools are those that you meet or exceed the program requirements for test scores and your academic record meets or exceeds the minimum GPA. Of all these categories, if you're going to add schools to your list, add to your target schools. There's no need to spend more time on the safeties or the reaches. The goal is to create a list of grad programs aligned with your academic background, budget, interests, and goals. I recommend applying to at least 3 to 4 target schools. Safety schools are those for which you exceed the GPA requirement and minimum scores for standardized tests and other exams. If UC San Diego has a more competitive admissions process than one of the graduate schools on your list, consider it a safety school. However, your safety school is much more than simply a place that you know will admit you. Rather, it needs to be close to home and inexpensive for you to attend. That way, if something goes horribly awry for you, personally, financially, or otherwise, you have an affordable and convenient option. Bearing all this in mind, unless you've totally misjudged the school in question and your ability to get in, it's not a good idea to apply to more than 1 to 2 safety schools. As you add schools to your list, I recommend using this tracker to organize additional information such as the program website, average test scores, and most importantly, deadlines. For rolling admissions, the earlier you submit your application, the better. More space and more funding will be available for earliest applicants. Try to have the application fully done soon after the program starts accepting applications. For schools that offer application rounds, it's an advantage to submit your application by the first round deadline. Given that this may sometimes be as early as September, be sure to shift my recommended timeline as needed. For priority deadlines, treat the priority as a hard deadline, as this will help your chances of admission, funding, or both. And lastly, if a program has just one deadline, it's not as important to get in early as long as all materials are submitted by the deadline. That said, you definitely don't want to leave everything to the last minute in case there's a technical or logistical error, so plan ahead. I strongly believe that your research into a program should go beyond just looking at the website. I recommend using the following resources to support your research to ensure you find the program that's right for you. The first resource I recommend using are the admissions representatives. Once you've identified schools that you're planning to apply to, be prepared to say what you're looking for, know who you want to talk to, and come prepared to ask questions to the admissions representatives. Treat the conversation as a job interview and put your best foot forward. The more informed you are about a place, the more fruitful will be your communications. The second resource I recommend is using faculty at UC San Diego and your desired program as well. Your HDSI faculty are the perfect resource to use as people who have been there and done that. Using office hours to have a conversation about their experience with graduate school could potentially lead to a letter of recommendation, but if it doesn't, that is still going to be an extremely valuable conversation as you approach your application and decision-making process. If there's a particular professor on faculty you'd like to work with or a particular facility that's notable within your desired program, feel free to reach out to those parties and tell them you're considering applying. You may fit a certain area they're looking for, and you might even get an ally on the admissions committee. Again, even if you don't, it will still be an extremely valuable conversation to understand student expectations and to start building relationships with potential faculty members. Another important part of your research is talking to students who are currently within the program in order to get a realistic understanding of what being a student in that program will be like. Admissions representatives will be able to discuss all the great program features and required application materials, but the current students will be able to set the right expectations for your experience and share their experience of the school culture. Lastly, program alumni are another great resource to tap for information on what the program is like, as well as their experience of career services and pursuing employment after graduation. For connecting with faculty, current students, and program alumni, I recommend using LinkedIn and seeing if the admissions representatives can refer you to any current students or alumni as well. If you need support with using LinkedIn, feel free to send a message to DSC Student Affairs through your virtual advising center, and I will be happy to provide you the recording of my LinkedIn workshop until it's available on our website. All right, it's time to apply. When moving forward with submitting applications, many worry about on-paper credentials such as test scores, GPAs, and awards. While those are certainly important details, many graduate schools prefer applicants who have relevant experience, clearly defined academic and professional goals, and a track record of showing genuine interest in their chosen field. This list highlights characteristics that graduate schools typically look for in an applicant. Number one, personability. The relationship between a graduate student and their professors is different than what most students experience as undergraduates. Graduate students work closer with faculty members and often have 3 to 5 professors in their inner circle who serve on their research, thesis, or dissertation committees over the course of 2 to 5 years. Therefore, professors in your prospective department will want to see that they will be able to work well with incoming students should they accept them. Admissions committees highly value students who can develop and articulate original ideas. In most statements of purpose, applicants are asked to outline their current or expected research interests. This gives you a chance to show off your original ideas in concise, thoughtful ways. These essays are typically short, so you'll need to be succinct and clear about your research interests while also being original and genuine. Graduate admissions committees also want to know if you are interested and invested in the process of earning an advanced degree, not just the job you hope to get after graduating. Because earning a graduate degree is such a major time investment, departments want students who are genuinely interested in expanding their knowledge and exploring important relevant research topics. While it is essential to articulate your career goals and desired trajectory, do not overlook the time you will spend at the school earning the degree. Similar to the above, admissions committees want to see that applicants are passionate and genuinely interested in the field they are planning to study. Have you been working in this field for some time already? Have you made contributions to the field through previous research projects or work experience? Do you have a clear idea of what you will do with the degree after graduating? Those are the kinds of details grad schools want to see. This shows you have the motivation and drive necessary to be a successful student. The rest of the section of the presentation will focus on common components required in the typical graduate school application. However, keep in mind this list may look differently depending on the school or department to which you choose to apply, so always make sure you read through individual school requirements carefully. As you work through this list of requirements, also keep those characteristics we just discussed in mind, as those characteristics should be evident in each part of your application package. So most, if not all, departments' websites have a section for prospective graduate students. There, you can find all of the application requirements and links to pertinent information, such as whether you must submit a separate application to the school itself, or if the departmental application only will suffice. If any of the application information is unclear online, contact the department directly to ensure you have accurate information before you start working on things or send anything in. That being said, if you do contact the department for more information, be patient for their response. Many departments have one staff member managing the admissions process as well as additional tasks. Becoming a nuisance to the individual who will be screening your application is not the first impression that you want to make. In addition to the application, there's typically a one-time fee. Application fees vary, but are often in the $50 to $150 range. Certain applicants, however, may be eligible for a fee waiver. This information should be available on the department website. If you feel you qualify for a fee waiver and the information is not included on the department website, make sure you connect with the department for support with this process. But again, be patient as you wait for their response. During the application process, you may be required to scan and upload copies of transcripts for all institutions attended after high school graduation. After the admissions decision has been made, official documents will be required to finalize your admission. To do so, you will have to submit transcript requests to the registrar's department at UC San Diego. This is the only way to get official transcripts. Again, make sure you carefully read the department's website to understand when you need to submit your official transcripts. When you are ready to do so, thankfully, all the information you need is available through your Triton link on the page titled How to Request a Transcript. Transcripts are covered by the one-time document fee, but shipping charges may apply. All fees associated with your transcript order are non-refundable. Electronic transcripts are processed and emailed to requested recipients within the same day of the order. Regular mail and international first-class air mail are mailed the same day as ordered if submitted by 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. While this may sound like a quick turnaround, I do recommend submitting your transcript request as soon as possible. Like your undergraduate GPA, the test scores provide graduate admissions committees with common measures to evaluate your qualifications and preparedness for graduate level work. Typically, a high test score will have a direct positive impact on your graduate school application. That said, most graduate programs understand that many applicants right now may face difficulty scheduling tests due to complications with COVID-19. Because of this, many programs are not requiring applicants to include test scores within their application materials for the fall 2021 application. That said, some programs still recommend applicants complete the exams if possible, and applicants may still submit valid test scores if they have already taken the tests. Because of this, I won't spend too much time on this section of the application. However, I did want to quickly touch on the difference between the GRE and the GMAT, given that this is a common question I received during my advising hours. Is my screen still being shared? Let me just make sure that, okay, perfect.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you. The green banner went away, so I got nervous for a second. Thank you so much. All right, so GRE versus GMAT. The GRE is a multiple choice standardized exam required for admission to graduate programs. It measures your command of basic arithmetic, algebra, geometry, data analysis, and college level vocabulary. More importantly, it assesses your ability to analyze and evaluate written material, think critically, and solve problems. The GMAT, on the other hand, is taken by people who plan to attend business school specifically or an MBA program and has the following 4 sections: integrated reasoning, a quantitative section, a verbal section, and an analytical writing assessment. The GMAT is an adaptive test. Adaptive testing is used to get more accurate scores by selecting specific questions with varying difficulty levels from a larger pool. I wanted to bring this up because we have a lot of students interested in business analytics programs, some being offered through university business schools. And as more and more business programs accept the GRE, many people are faced with the decision of whether to take the GMAT or the GRE. Both exams contain writing, quantitative, and verbal sections that cover many similar topics. However, most people agree that the GMAT has a more challenging quantitative questions, and the GRE has slightly more challenging verbal questions. Many business schools have no preference between the 2 exams, but there are some that prefer the GMAT because they believe it tests skills more directly related to business school coursework, and submitting GMAT scores also shows the applicant is committed to business school. To figure out which exam you should take, first research the exam policies of the top schools you're interested in and take a practice test for each exam. Review this information as well as other differences between the exams to help you make your final decision. For our younger students joining us today, it's important to plan how many times you plan to take your exams. Some prospective students prefer the one and done approach. As you study and prepare to take an exam, you know you have one chance to earn your desired score. There's some comfort in the fact that even if you don't earn your desired score, you know that that portion of the process is over and done with. On the other hand, some students know that no matter how diligently they prepare for a standardized exam, they always need a second try. If you think you have the patience, funding, and time management skills to sit twice for an exam and you predict a higher score the second time around, you should take it again, but limit yourself to how many times you'll allow yourself to retake the exam. Limiting yourself to 1 or 2 sessions is all about reducing stress and keeping the application process moving. Most students prefer to take their standardized exams at least 2 months before their application deadline. This gives them a little buffer time to retake the exam if they're not satisfied with their score. You don't have to enroll in a costly test preparation course to do your best on a standardized exam. You can download a series of smartphone apps and free online sample tests to help you study in your spare time for little to no cost. For example, Kaplan and Princeton Review both offer free online GRE prep tests. Again, given the uncertainty of this requirement, it's important to use your desired program's department website to remain aware of the most up-to-date guidance available. All right, your letters of recommendation. They should be from professors, academic advisors, or any person you worked with in an academic or professional capacity that can speak to your likelihood of success as a graduate student. Avoid asking for letters from family and friends. The most effective letters come from professors with whom you have worked, particularly those who are widely known in their field. Most schools require students to submit 3 to 4 letters of recommendation. My tips for success when acquiring your letters of recommendation are the following. Number 1, choose wisely. Don't choose just any professor or instructor that gave you an easy A. Choose a professor you have a relationship with, preferably one you have cultivated throughout your academic career or one from your junior year. A teacher who barely knows you can't write a good personal letter of recommendation. You'll most likely get a form letter just listing the components of your resume, and that's not the kind of letter you want or need. This is a good reason to establish relationships early in your time in the class and within your academic career. An instructor who knows you and has shared in your academic and personal growth will be the one that writes the greatest letter. On this note, make sure you select an instructor that will actually write your letter. If you may have a positive relationship with a professor, but if they notoriously do not respond to emails, it may be worth considering alternative options. Number 2, have a conversation. So first and foremost, do not list your instructor as a recommender on your online application before actually asking them. Additionally, your first conversation with your instructor ever during an office hour should not be you asking them for a letter of recommendation. If you don't have anyone to ask, it's important to approach establishing your relationship with the understanding that this will not just happen in one conversation. Once you've established a relationship, have a conversation about why you want to go to grad school and why you have chosen the programs the recommender will be writing for. This helps the instructors make the letters more personal and help them formulate their thoughts and ideas related to drafting the letters. Admissions receives thousands of these letters, so yours should stand out. And this step will give your recommenders the information they need to craft a letter that will get the admissions officer's attention. Number 3, provide the individuals with deadline dates and instructions. For example, give clear instructions from the university on how to submit the letter online. I also recommend waiving your right to review recommendation letters on your application forms, as admissions officers will trust them more if you haven't seen them. Remember, you are not asking your professor to write you a letter and then walking away and never talking to them again. It's important to provide the necessary information and to follow up prior to the deadline dates to verify the letter has been sent. Not only is it important to provide deadlines and instructions, it's also helpful to provide reference materials. Professors appreciate having your resume because it helps them highlight specific areas they will be discussing in the letter. For instance, if they're talking about your academic success in the classroom, they can also mention that you're a member of the National Honor Society as stated on your resume. Additionally, I recommend sharing a copy of your statement of purpose once completed with those who you've asked to recommend you. This way, they will know what you've already said and won't repeat the same things. Number 5, give the instructor plenty of time. So instructors are inundated with letter requests, most at the last minute. To give your professor plenty of time, consider asking at the end of your junior year or at the very latest at the beginning of the school year, your senior year. For those seniors attending today, if you have not yet asked for your letters of recommendation, do so immediately. Your instructor will appreciate the time allowance and have more time to craft a thoughtful letter. Again, with so many letters to write in the fall, giving more time will give you a leg up on all other students that are asking at the last minute. And lastly, don't forget to write a thank you note to the professor after you've been accepted, letting them know how much you appreciate the effort they put into crafting your letter. It's also important to share with them the program you'll be attending and to thank them for influencing you during your time together to achieve academic excellence. The statement of purpose is an important part of the application process and is given careful consideration in the selection process. Be concise and specific in preparing your statement. Give information that will aid the selection committee in evaluating your potential for completing the program. The reason this part of the application is extremely important is that it is your opportunity to set yourself apart from all the other students trying to get admitted to the same graduate program as you. In that sense, I like to think of this as your cover letter for graduate school. If this part of the application is a bit daunting, I recommend taking the following steps. First, brainstorm. How can you catch the reader's attention? What sets you apart from other applicants? What types of things will help the admissions committee get to know you better that might not be apparent from the rest of your application materials? Who are you, and what are the accomplishments you are most proud of? What are your academic and career aspirations? These are all things to think about when considering how to focus your statement of purpose. Next, fill up that blank screen. Even if you're not sure what you want your topic to be, just start writing and the chances are ideas will start to come to you in the process. A good place to start is with I learned, I read, I wrote, etc. Whatever you do, keep writing. You may end up scrapping your entire first few drafts, and that's okay because it's a crucial part to getting started. Feeling anxious, self-conscious, or overwhelmed is completely normal, and the only way through it is to keep going until you hit your stride or figure out exactly what you'd like to write about. Number 3, get input. It might help to ask friends or family members for topic ideas. Additionally, it's inevitable you'll have typos or errors. So by sharing your writing with others, they can help you catch mistakes before they're submitted. Number 4, keep it simple. When writing your statement of purpose, do your best to be clear, concise, and to the point. When discussing your research ideas, for example, avoid the temptation to elaborate on things that are commonly known in the field. The professors reviewing your application are experts in the field and do not need this background information. Instead, focus on what you have to contribute to the program in addressing the given prompts. Number 5, explain why you want to attend the school. The truth of the matter is that admissions committees want to know why you think you are a good fit in that particular program. You should write about professors in the department, how and why you value their work, and why you wish to study with them. Your success in graduate school depends upon your ability to mesh with a department that can challenge you as much as it supports you. And finally, number 6, find a balance. When writing a statement of purpose, you must find a balance between specific details and an interesting narrative. This is easier to accomplish in a shorter essay. Avoid spending too much time on personal history and which events or experiences led you to that particular field. Rather, tell the committee why you wish to seek an advanced degree in this area and how this particular department will help you accomplish that. Although you should be referring to your desired department website for prompts, here you'll see the recommended primary topics to cover in your statement of purpose for the UC San Diego Graduate Division as an example, and for those of you intending to apply into a UC San Diego graduate program. Additionally, other recommended factors to weave in include giving examples of personal attributes or qualities that would help you complete graduate studies successfully, describing your determination to achieve your goals, your initiative and ability to develop ideas, and your ability to work independently, describing background characteristics that may have placed you at an educational disadvantage that you've overcome, and leaving the reader believing that you are prepared for advanced academic work and will be successful in graduate school. Moving on to the next application material, the resume or CV provides a convenient location for the admissions committee to see all of your credentials, publications, awards, research interests, and academic and employment history all in one place. These details should be clearly organized, easy to read, and void of any non-essential verbiage. Resumes are often confined to one's educational and employment history. CVs, or curriculum vitae, on the other hand, usually entail a longer list of information, including relevant awards and publications. Here are my tips for creating a successful resume or CV. Number one, keep it short. Prospective students with only an undergraduate degree should keep their resume or CV to one page. Adding more items to this document does not necessarily make you a stronger applicant. Your admissions committee should be able to look at this document and see the highlights from your educational, employment, and academic history. Follow an example. Formatting matters when it comes to constructing a resume or CV. For general guidance on how to structure your CV, try reviewing faculty members' departmental online profiles. It's okay to closely follow the formatting of someone else's resume or CV, provided you don't use any of the content. Some sections of this document may be more widely used in certain fields than others, so you should check with an expert in your area, such as an HDSI faculty member, to learn of any field-specific conventions or preferences that should be included. And finally, number three, avoid the copy and paste. So when you're applying online, sometimes digital applications have fields where you can paste a resume or CV. In most cases, these are simple text boxes without any formatting. So as a result, when you paste your information into the box, you lose all your formatting and spacing. So whenever possible, attach a PDF file of your resume or CV instead of pasting it into the generic box. Portfolios may be an optional requirement depending on the graduate program, but we'll still touch on them quickly. They are often extensive documents that provide supplemental information about one's CV. Each part should highlight a specific skill or significant academic achievement. When starting a portfolio entirely from scratch, I recommend the following. Number one, create a web portfolio. So today's portfolios are typically online, publicly available, and are accepted in a variety of formats. Think of it as creating a highly personalized, articulate, personal website. This allows you to create and edit the project more easily and include visuals, links, and other graphics that would generally be difficult to include into a hard copy submission. If you're applying for a technology-heavy degree, like something in data science, this offers you an additional moment to shine. Number two, use basic layouts and a simple design. Above all, the portfolio must be clear, easy to navigate, and look professional. To ensure that your portfolio is easy to read, do not overcrowd your pages with text. Again, visuals can be more effective when used appropriately. That said, it is okay to include links to full-page documents, especially if they link to a polished PDF or handout-style pages that represent what you've used in a professional or classroom setting. Similar to what we see on simple websites, have a drop-down menu in either the upper left or upper right corner so users can navigate between sections easily. Number three, use a short title page. At most, the first page should include your name and concise biography. You can have quick links to your most important pieces, but avoid too much information up front. The short biography and the layout of the page should make the reader want to see what your work has to offer. And number four, review with a professor. If you're starting a portfolio entirely from scratch, you should give yourself 3 to 6 months to complete a polished online version, and I recommend you ask one of your professors to look it over once completed because it really needs to shine. Also, it's very possible that in your graduate school admission interview, they'll make reference to this work. Know it well and be ready to talk about it, including secondary resources that you reference in more depth. Reviewing your portfolio in advance with a professor is a great way to practice for the interview. On that note, another component that may not be required for all programs is an in-person or webcam interview. While these are mostly required for business schools, given the strong interest we see in business analytics, I still want to provide a few tips for success. When it comes to a grad school interview, honesty is the best policy. Your interviewers may ask you personal questions about weaknesses or shortcomings in your academic career. Be honest about any past mistakes and be able to articulate a plan for your academic success as well as your career goals. To reiterate, be honest, but don't dwell on the negatives. Your response should focus on a calculated plan for academic success moving forward. Number two, being prepared. That applies to both your responses and the questions that you plan to ask. Because you submitted your application before your interview and your committee, that means that you and your committee have some common knowledge at the beginning of the interview. It's important to know what you put on your application, what you've submitted, especially any specifics you wrote in your statement of purpose about that particular department. Be familiar with all aspects of your application, your resume, your statement of purpose, and even be ready to discuss your transcripts if necessary. As you prepare to speak to your highlights, be prepared to speak to how these abilities apply to your new graduate environment. In regard to the questions you have prepared, do your homework in advance to gather the information you need to make your decision about the program, the school, and the community. Remember, preparation contributes to calm behavior. Do your best to be aware of confidence, fidgeting, nonverbal communication, good eye contact. Essentially, do your best to stay relaxed. And this last tip is to remember that your first impression matters. Interviewees need to look the part even during webcam interviews, so avoid anything that you wouldn't normally wear to a business office. In most cases, business casual clothing is appropriate. This may seem obvious, but for webcam interviews, be sure to wear a complete outfit and not just what's visible on the screen. If you suddenly have to get up from your chair, you do not want to have on gym shorts or pajama bottoms with your dress shirt or your blouse. Like I said, first impressions are important, so be sure you extend courtesy to all, which includes being polite to the administration staff as well. So when applying to grad school, most people focus on what they need to do to get in. Certain things, however, can ruin your chances of getting into graduate school, and some of those things are easy to overlook when you're so focused on requirements and instructions. In addition to the obvious mistakes, such as not proofreading, submitting an incomplete application, or missing a deadline, this list highlights things applicants should not do when applying to grad school. While these may seem like obvious or fairly ineffectual points, they are unfortunate and commonly made mistakes. So number one, don't leave blank spaces or fields. This is different from submitting an incomplete application with missing components. A successful grad school application is filled out in its entirety without leaving anything blank. If a certain question is irrelevant to your circumstances, make a notation of that so that the reader doesn't wonder why it's blank or make assumptions that you forgot to fill it in. Number two, don't use shorthand or abbreviations. The ability to write coherently and effectively is a cornerstone of graduate studies. This applies to all instances where you submit written content. Never write a shorthand response or incomplete sentence when given the appropriate space within a field, and always keep it professional. Incomplete sentences, even when written intentionally, may lead the committee to believe you rushed through the document or simply forgot to proofread. So, while checking for spelling and grammatical errors, keep an eye out for those often overlooked mistakes as well. Number three, all of your materials should be as uniform as possible. Not only does this create a sense of continuity between your documents, it makes your materials feel more organized and thoughtfully prepared. Uniformity helps applicants avoid other common mistakes, such as mismatched dates and timelines. When appropriate, one of the ways to create a sense of unity between documents is to use a header and page numbers. Number four, when writing your statement of purpose, it's important that you remain humble. Bear in mind that you are sending this application to a panel of experts who already have advanced degrees in this field. While you may be an advanced prospective student and wish to showcase your knowledge in particular areas, it is in your best interest to know your audience and remain unpretentious. Your prospective department may actually read your overconfidence as a mask for fear, such as the fear of not knowing or the fear of not being the best or the smartest, as opposed to a sign of intelligence. Or they may think your arrogance will not be a good fit for the department. Lastly, the people on the committee reviewing your application already know their accomplishments, so there's no need to spend time on extensive flattery. Instead, the admissions committee needs to hear about how and why you would be a good fit for their department. An essay or interview that contains too much praise for the school or individuals on the panel can reek of desperation, which is never a good thing. All right, so again, I know this is a lot of information, and I know the process for applying to graduate school can be a bit overwhelming, but you're not alone. I've mentioned a few resources throughout the presentation, so I wanted to take some time to provide a quick recap before we open it up to questions. First, we'll discuss resources that can help you prepare for graduate school. If you can do a research experience at a place where you would like to go to graduate school, it is the #1 thing you can do to prepare. You get to experience the life of a graduate student in the program. You get to check out the department, meet their graduate students, essentially get a snapshot of what life would be like. And if you can get a letter of recommendation from a faculty member in that department who has supervised your research, it carries a lot of weight. That said, there are a ton of undergraduate research opportunities offered at UC San Diego. Through the Halijolu Data Science Institute, we offer an undergraduate scholarship program. Essentially, you as an individual or you as part of a team can submit a research proposal related to data science, and if it's approved, your research is funded and you're paired with a faculty mentor. We just opened up the next application cycle, so more information about that can be found on our website under the Financial Opportunities tab. Additionally, the Academic Enrichment Program at UC San Diego has a ton of undergraduate research opportunities that I personally love because it gives you that mentorship. #1, not only are they guiding you through that experience, but those are great resources as potential recommenders or just to help you with navigating the graduate school process in general. All of these programs have a ton more information on the Academic Enrichment Program website. So if you're interested, make sure you check it out. And lastly, these are the resources I recommend to help you research programs to apply to and with the application process itself. So the UC San Diego Graduate Division website is full of information. And so for those of you that are thinking about applying to grad school right now, use that as a reference. And for those of you that are intending to apply to a UC San Diego grad program, definitely bookmark that website. The Educational Testing Service, or the ETS website, they are your main source for testing. So that's where you can go to get the most updated information about your testing options, the status, especially with everything going on with COVID-19. So I definitely recommend referring there, especially if you're a younger student and you're not sure if you're going to need to take an exam or not. US News Education, I think, is a really wonderful resource. You can subscribe to their mailing list for free, and they end up sending you really helpful articles that I personally, will sometimes include in the newsletter, but you don't need to wait for me to include it in the newsletter. Subscribe yourself so you get all the information available as soon as possible. And desired job postings. So this is a great way to figure out if your desired career path requires an education level at the graduate level, or if, for example, they do require that postgraduate work experience before applying into grad school. So definitely use desired job postings as a way to help you navigate what you need to be qualified eventually for that desired job posting. As I mentioned before, your HDSI faculty, the graduate program admissions representatives, and LinkedIn are all great resources to talk to people that have been there and done that, to talk to people whose job it is to help you out with the application process, and to talk with people who can help you understand expectations and experience of your desired programs. UC San Diego has a wonderful career center. Their website has a whole page on getting into grad school, and I know that their advisors are meeting with students virtually through Handshake. And then there's me. If you're a data science major or alumni, I'm here and happy to help you navigate your options, the process, the decision to go to grad school, whatever you need, that's what I'm here for. Okay, so I know this is a lot of information, and so I haven't seen anything come through the chat just yet. So now is the time. If you have any questions or concerns that we didn't address through the presentation, please post them into the chat, and I am happy to address them with you. Thank you all so much for sticking around. I hope that you found this really helpful. And again, anything else you need to feel ready, prepared, excited to move forward with pursuing a graduate education, now is the time to ask. All right, so we have our first question, and it's a great one, so thank you for putting this out there. So it says, my question is, how am I supposed to approach a professor who I have established a relationship with if I want him or her to craft a letter of recommendation for me? What are the specific questions to ask? I feel quite awkward for being too direct. So thank you again for bringing this up, because directness is something that gets brought up a lot in my conversations with students. So faculty members are aware that they're probably going to be asked for letters of recommendation, especially if they teach junior or senior level classes. I think what would be helpful to make you not feel so awkward or direct or invasive is to be very mindful of when and how you are approaching them to ask. Are you cornering them near the faculty lounge? Are you waiting outside their office at 7 a.m. before they've even gotten in and it's the first thing and you're overwhelming them? Instead, you know, I really recommend using the office hours, as long as it's not right before a midterm or a final exam. And so whether that's sending an email, hey, I would really like to talk with you about graduate school. I was going to use your office hours, but if you would prefer we set up another time, please let me know. And then when you ask, you know, like we said, it's a conversation, right? And so, hey, I'm really interested in grad school. I'm really interested in these programs for XYZ reasons. And I'd really love it if you could write a letter of recommendation for me for XYZ reasons. A lot of times, if you can help them understand why they're being chosen, that helps them understand what you're looking for in your letter from them. For example, I had students last year ask me for recommendation letters, and they said, you know, we were new in the program. We've only had so many faculty. You have been a consistent person for me through the program. You've been able to speak to my academic growth and personal growth, and I'd really appreciate it if you could speak to that in a letter of recommendation for me. Great. Maybe, like you said, it's a professor that you already have a relationship with. It probably won't be a surprise for them if you ask, but again, being specific in why you are asking them will be helpful for them for writing the letter. And as long as you're mindful about the way that you ask them, you're not, you know, cornering them, you're not, you know, like, think about it. Would you want someone knocking on your door at 8 a.m.? Would you want somebody, you know, sending you a Zoom invite at 8 a.m. or not even asking and just popping up with a Zoom invitation or something like that? So as long as you're just kind and courteous and mindful, it's okay, and you're not being too direct. And a way to avoid that feeling of directness is to provide explanation rather than, will you write me a letter? I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, please respond and I can elaborate further. But thank you for asking that. I know a lot of students feel weird or nervous, but it's, you know, faculty, they are invested in you. You know, they want to see you succeed. They want to support your goals. And especially if they have a relationship with you, a lot of times it's an honor to be asked to write a letter of recommendation. And, you know, it's, as long as you're giving them enough time, you're doing so in a polite and appropriate way. It's not this burden that you've put on them. All of a sudden, it's something that they're excited to do. That being said, especially for the instructors that are teaching, you know, upper level classes, they may have 15 to 20 students asking them for letters of recommendation. That's why it's important to ask as soon as possible so that you're one of the first that they agree to. So if you find that you ask an instructor and they say, you know what, I'm really not able to, don't take it personally. Don't catastrophize and think, oh my God, I can't go to grad school, because the odds are it has nothing to do with you. They've probably just already overcommitted and they don't want to put you in a position where they're not able to write you the letter that you deserve. And so that's why it's important to kind of plan ahead in that way, have a list of backup professors that you can ask. And also too, as you approach these experiences, your supervisors, your managers, you know, anything like that, anyone that's seen you in that professional capacity, that can speak to your ability to be successful, those are the people that you do want to make an effort to establish a relationship, not just with the thought of, oh, they can write me a letter, because those people can serve as mentors and help guide you and build your network. So as you approach relationships in general, it's not necessarily what can I get out of this person, or what's my end game with this person. Think of it as the more people that you build in your network, the more relationships you establish, the more people you have in your corner to go to when you need advice or when you need a favor, like writing a letter of recommendation. We have about 2 minutes left, so any last questions or concerns? Like I mentioned, if you need help with reaching out to current students and alumni or faculty through LinkedIn, I have a recorded LinkedIn workshop. We're working on updating the HDSI website to have a career services section, but until that update is made, I'm happy to send you the link directly through your virtual advising center. For the data science majors and alumni that are joining us today, I am still offering 30-minute appointments if you need support with navigating your options, going through the application process, anything like that. And for the non-majors that are joining us today, remember that UCSD Career Services is offering appointments virtually through Handshake. I believe all the instructions you need are right through there. Every UC San Diego student has a Handshake account. You just have to log in with your ucsd.edu email. All right, well, we are coming up to the end of our time. Again, thank you all so much for attending and for sticking out through the end. I hope that this was really helpful. If there's anything else I can do to help, reach out through your virtual advising center, and enjoy your Friday. And don't forget to join us next week with our panelists to talk about different degrees, different career pathways, their experience of grad school and that decision-making process. And then the following week, my goal is to have a couple different graduate programs through UC San Diego to give information about the options and to connect with prospective students. So thank you again for attending. Enjoy the rest of your Friday, and we hope to see you again next week from Friday, 12 to 1 Pacific Standard Time. Have a great weekend.